Hi there, my name is Steve Wright. I'm webmaster of Wakefield Camera Club. This short video is to help you in resizing your image to make sure it's correct for entering the various competitions that we run. The maximum size for any image is 1600 pixels by 1200 pixels as in the diagram above. These are the absolute maximum sizes that you can have. In the diagrams above you can see that we have a black line around the 1600 by 1200 dimensions, and on the left we've got a landscape image that fits into the dimensions, and on the right a portrait image that fits into the dimensions. Note the portrait is 1200 high, not 1600. 1200 is the maximum, so obviously it will be narrower than that at the bottom. A square image would still have to fit into those dimensions of 1600 by 1200. So how do we go about achieving that when the image that you may have on your computer could be any size but is likely to be larger than those two dimensions? Well, we're now going to go over how to do it. Okay, it's going to be a very simple operation that we're going to do, but just to be on the safe side, before you start doing it, the first thing to do is to make sure that you've saved your existing image at full resolution, and then you can always go back to it if something goes wrong, there's a power cut or anything else happens. Just to be on the safe side, save it first. Here we are in Photoshop Elements with an image that I've been working on, and it's ready for entry into the competition apart from resizing. Most modern cameras will produce images that are way beyond the 1600 by 1200 dimensions, and I'm quite sure that this will be exactly the same. So how do we go about it? It's very easy. That's the first thing to say. Dead simple. But let's just reassure people in that Photoshop Elements has three methods of editing: the quick, the guided and the expert, and you may use any one of them or all of them. But the thing to notice is that top left, all these menus are the same in any of the methods. So whichever you use, what I'm about to show you will work without any trouble. Okay, so how do we go about things? Well, first of all, here you have the menu bar top left, and you'll see the third in from the left is image, and it's image that we want to change. We want to change the image size, so click on it. When you click and then just move down, you'll see that you get to resize, which strangely enough is exactly what we want to do. And what we want to do is to change the image size. The image size is what we need to change. So just click on it and up comes the image size change dialog box. Here it is in the middle. So let's first have a look at our dimensions. The pixel dimensions of my image at the moment are 2752 by 1941 pixels. Far too big to enter into the competitions, so we need to change it. You'll notice that I'm trying to click on it and there's nothing that will work. It's locked. So go down to the bottom of the box, bottom of the dialog box there, and you can see something called resample image. Click on the checkbox there, and hopefully you saw that everything changed at the top. The dimensions are the same, but now we can change them. You'll also notice that there's a line linking the height and the width. This is because down at the bottom we also have ticked constrain proportions. Constrain proportions means that it will retain the aspect ratio, the width to the height. So you can reduce it, but the ratio between the two will remain the same. If you don't have that ticked, I'll show you, it's not ticked, no lines linking them. So what happens is you can change the height and it won't change the width accordingly. So you'll end up with an elongated image. Or you change the width, let's say, maybe you make it bigger and it stretches it out, simply because it's not going to change the height at all. We want to make sure that we have constraint proportions ticked. There we are. The link is there now. Watch what happens. When I get rid of the 2752 width and type in 1600, know what happens. The height immediately drops to 1128. It's kept the proportions correct. And that's basically all that we need to do. You may end up with an image that's slightly squarer than this. So when you type in a width of 1600, the height is greater than 1200. Well, in that case, just overwrite the height with 1200 and it will then change the width accordingly. But whichever you do, you'll end up with something that conforms to the 1600 by 1200 maximum. And really, it is as simple as that. One last little bit is down at the very bottom here of this dialog box. It says bicubic best for smooth gradients. Well, it's the way in which Photoshop will resample the image to get it down to your dimensions. You can click on the drop down there and you can see that there's bicubic best for smooth gradients, bicubic smoother best for enlargement, well, we're not enlarging, and bicubic sharper best for reduction. So it's going to be the bicubic sharper or the bicubic. I'm told by those that use Photoshop Elements a lot that there's nothing much between them at all, but you can try it and see what happens. I'll leave it at best for smooth gradients there. All I have to do is say OK, and there it is. It's smaller. Believe it or not, that is all that there is to it. Well, there's been a lot of explanation as I go along, so let me just undo that and I'll go through it as you would probably go through it yourselves. So it's just a recap, just to reinforce it. Top left, menu bar, third in says image, click on it. Go down to resize. When image size is there, click on that. Change the width to 1600. If you can't change it at all, remember at the bottom, click resample image. Just tick that box there. That's reduced. I want to keep bicubic best for smooth gradients and click OK. Boom, that's it. Job done. The image is smaller. So now we can save it. Now remember, you saved this before at the full resolution. So now what we want to do is to save this version, the small version. So go up to the top left to the normal menu and click on File, down to Save As, and here we have the name, Port Latin Rock Pool. Now I'm going to actually rename it by, I add just SML for small. It's just my way of showing that it's a small image. I've reduced it. You can actually choose what you want. It doesn't really matter. But that just allows me to differentiate between the full version and the small version, so that when I'm looking for the entries, I'll put them in, put the right ones in. We then change the format down here to JPEG, because all entries have to be in the JPEG format. And we just click on Save. Here you can see the normal save options for JPEGs, quality 12, which is maximum. With a large file, we want the maximum quality that we can get within those dimensions. So just click OK. And that's it. Job done. Now, nothing could be really easier than that. One or two little points. Some of the eagle-eyed amongst you might have realised that when we came up to the top left to image and went down to resize and across to image size, it said Alt Control I. I'll just click out of that, away from the menu. I'm going to undo the image resize, again just like that. And now if I hold the Alt and Control key down and press I, up comes the image size dialog box. It's just the same as if you clicked on the image menu item, gone down to resize and then image size. It's exactly the same. All you have to do is Alt Control I, and up it comes. So if you prefer to use keyboards rather than using the mouse, then that's the way to do it. The results are exactly the same, no problem at all. So I'll just cancel that. There you have how to do it. One last reminder: top left, image, resize, image size, change it to 1600. This is a landscape image that we're doing, so we're expecting the horizontal to be the longest. Change it to that. If it comes to more than 1200 on the height, change that to 1200. And that's it. Click on OK. It's reduced. File, save as. I won't go through that because I've already got it saved. You can do that yourself quite easily. OK. Now here's an image in portrait orientation. So the vertical's much longer than the horizontal. So how do we go about resizing this? Well, it's no different really. It's exactly the same. So let's go up to top left, to image, resize, image size. Now you notice that the height is greater than the width, of course, because it's portrait. So let's go into this and click 1200, or type in 1200, and then you can see the width is 759. Everything's within that 1600 by 1200. Remember, the maximum is 1200. You can't put 1600 in there, or else it won't qualify for entry into the competition. We've done that. We're resampling. Down at the bottom here, we're just leaving it as bicubic, best for smooth gradients. If you wish, you could choose best for reduction. It's whatever you want. The dimensions are okay, so we just click OK, and there it is, smaller. It looks very small on screen, but don't get worried, it will project when it's in competition full size on the screen. So it won't appear just like a postage stamp. It will be what you want. So all we have to do then, as before, is save it. File, save as, and I'm going to do my normal method of just typing SML for small, change it to JPEG, and then click save. Maximum resolution. Again, we want the best quality within those dimensions, and click OK. And that's it. Job done. Now that you're seeing it more often, it is quite an easy process, isn't it? I'll just go back under Edit and undo that image size change just to reinforce it. And I'm going to use Control Alt I. I'll use the keyboard way of bringing up that dialog box, doesn't matter. Height 1200. Width is 759. That's how it's going to be with the portrait. 1200 high. If it's in portrait, then the width is bound to be less than 1200, so we needn't worry about it. And then click OK. And that's it. Easy. Just one little thing, go back and undo it again. If when you bring up the image dialog box, remember if there are no lines there and you cannot actually type anything in there, then go down to the bottom, resample image, the lines appear. We've got constrained proportions, make sure that's ticked, and everything will work okay. See, 1200, okay, and that's it, job done. I'll say, now I would save it, but I've already saved it once, and I think you know how to do that without any problem. So that's what you do with a portrait orientation. Last of all, let's have a look at something that's pretty square. If you've got an image that's pretty square, how do you fit this into 1600 by 1200? Well, it's just the same as all the others. No difficulty with it whatsoever. It's just got to remember fit into that box 1600 by 1200. So up to the top left, image, resize, image size, or you could have used the keyboard. Now you can see that you have, in my case, 3957 by 3430, fairly near square. Let's reduce the width to 1600. The height has changed to 1387, so it's kept in proportion, but because of that we are now greater than the 1200 high. We're outside that box of 1600 by 1200. So all that we need to do is to go into the height and change that to 1200. Now the width has changed accordingly to 1384. So you will be within those 1600 by 1200 limits. So if it's a square image that you have, the chances are you'll need to reduce the height to 1200 and the width will be okay, because you've got a maximum of 1600 there. So that's it. I'll just cancel and just go through it again. I'll use the keyboard, Alt Control I, up it comes. Remember, if you've got no lines, you can't change anything, so down to the bottom, resample the image, make sure you've got constrained proportions, the lines are there, everything's going to be okay. I changed that to 1600, but the height is too great, so I'll go into that one, change it to 1200, it's within the 1600 for the width, you're fine. So we'll say OK, it reduces it. You must be feeling by now that this is a pretty simple thing to do. And then all we've got to do is save it. File, save as, and for the last time, SML for it's a small image. Remember, that is just my way of doing it. You can just use S, or you can use anything that you want, but choose a different name. Make it different so you don't overwrite that full resolution image. Click on JPEG, all the entries have got to be in JPEG, and then just save it. Maximum quality, OK. And that is it. Now we've looked at a landscape image, a portrait image and a square image. So that contains just about everything that you're likely to come across, and that shows you how to reduce all three. So I hope you've got everything you need from this video and that you'll get those entries into the competitions.